Hey there, I'm Sully, and as always, welcome to the Gun Club. Alrighty, now I'll tell you, I had originally planned to do this as a live stream for one of our evening sessions and was going to cover this case in depth for that. However, I kind of decided better of it just because of the fact that a lot of times our live streams, our evening streams, they're fun, they're lighthearted, they're a lot of times a mental break from the week or a little change of pace from what we deal with normally. And we all get a little bit goofy. And unfortunately, there's nothing that's really goofy or fun about this stream. It's going to be kind of serious. By the end of it, you'll see that, 7, 8, 9, 10 young people's lives have been dramatically altered as a result of it. And not only theirs, but also by consequence, their families as a result, and the people around them and their friends. I hope you all stayed till the end. It's not meant to be a downer. It's not meant to be a black pill of the week. It is, however, meant to really look in deep into this whole situation. And I will say there's going to be times during this that you'll be sitting there saying, well, why did they do that? Why did they do that? Folks, my father used to say, if is the biggest two-letter word in the English language. Well, that, and, if a frog didn't bend his back legs, he wouldn't bump his hind quarters. My point is, yeah, we can what if and we can coulda, woulda, shoulda this all to death. And we'll talk about that at the end because I think I've got a different perspective than some people may have. And all I'm asking is we look at this with an open mind and we look at the big picture of the whole thing. So let's get into this a little bit and see what we've got. We're going to be talking about a situation that took place in Idaho Falls, Idaho, back on February 12th of 2024, about 0100 in the morning. And we're going to talk about this and how it has played out and how it's continuing to play out and how some of it has turned into a bit of a travesty. There's some good and bad, and yeah, there's plenty of ugly in here too. But we're going to go through this step by step, talk about what happened, and go through the whole thing. Now, this case first came across my desk thanks to, I believe it was Mr. Scott Awesome sent it over to me and said, you might want to look at this. This looks kind of weird and looked kind of interesting to him. He had seen it on a stream from Cannon Hotep. Cannon Hotep did a big deep dive on this. They actually had one of the young people's fathers on the stream with him. They had some of the video from it. Now, the video footage wasn't the greatest. It was filmed by a phone that was being held by somebody who later ended up getting shot. So the footage is spotty at best. I didn't bother to get the footage and bring it over. I did contact the father briefly by text message, reached out to him, told him I was going to cover it, and that his son and his family were definitely in my thoughts and prayers because this is, again, a kind of a bad situation. You'll see how we get into this. This is a cautionary tale in some ways, and we'll talk about it at the end. The coulda, woulda, shoulda stuff. Again, I hope you all stay till the end and you hear kind of what my mindset is after looking at the whole thing, reading, way too many articles, watching the video frame by frame, watching a lot of things that went on, because I think there's a lot more here that we can really learn from this, and also, keeping the family in our thoughts at this time. I'll also say that when I reached out to the father, he was very nice in his response. I asked him point blank, did you establish any kind of give, send, go or anything like that to help your family, help with legal bills, help with costs or expenses? He had not at that time. If and when he does, or if and when there's more developments in this, I definitely will bring it out. This is definitely a case that I will be following rather closely as developments occur, because it is a very dynamic situation still at this point. So, without any further ado, let's get into this up in Idaho on February 12th of 2024. Now, I have to give you the backstory. We've got a bunch of kids. Taylor is 18. He's got an ongoing problem with this guy named Gabe, who's 19. Eventually, they agreed to meet up, Dark 100, out behind the school and settle it like men. Now, this is what you call mutual combat. It's actually considered legal in the state of Idaho. Two adults decide, I want to kick your butt, you want to kick my butt. we can step outside and settle it, or we can go meet at an appointed time and settle it with fisticuffs. Is it the best way to do things? Well, maybe, maybe not. And we can have that debate, and we'll have it at the end. On the other side of that coin, that was what happened. We're not going to change history or rewrite it. I'm not believing in that. Don't believe it at all. Now, Gabe, from everything we're hearing, is basically a decent guy. And Taylor, well, we think he's a decent guy. We'll find out a little bit more later as we dig into this. But Gabe was kind of afraid of it. Might be a setup. He might be getting jumped. He might, Taylor might bring a bunch of guys with him. So he reaches out to his good friend, Aaron, who's 20, and says, hey, man, can you ride with me? Go out there. He also has his girlfriend with him, and Gabe's brother eventually shows up in another vehicle. Now, the girlfriend and the brother in the other vehicle, they never get out of the vehicle, and so we're not really going to count them too much. Because, yes, they were present, but primarily as witnesses. They didn't take part in this in any way, shape, or form. So, being that they never got out of the vehicle and they just sort of rode up, we're going to leave that alone. So, we've got Gabe and his buddy Aaron with him. And his buddy Aaron, again, might have had some second thoughts or some misgivings about this. But on the other side of the coin, if your buddy asks you to be there for him and get his back, you step up, you do it. Is it the greatest thing to do? We'll talk. Gabe and Taylor, they're going to go settle this. And Aaron's just there to make sure, Taylor doesn't bring a bunch of boys with him and get jumped. Well, Taylor rolls up, and he's 5-6 individuals with him. So he's rolling like 7 deep, including one who's actually walking up, filming it for a live stream. Filming it for a live stream? Is this like a choreographed thing? Are we going to have like the Sharks and the Jets doing the whole Grease thing, or West Side Story? Yeah. Well, Gabe and his brother had parked their trucks sort of next to each other. And so we've got a setting here, and it's not like two groups in skirmish lines moving against each other. We've got kind of a narrow, more Hogan's Alley looking type thing. We've got 2 vehicles parked side to side, and the groups meet in between the vehicles. Now, Taylor and his crew all walk over, and again, they got one with a camera going. Just apparently, this is going to be epic. I don't know. Do we post this stuff online? Is this what, the TikTok generation is doing now? Sorry, not me. I'll claim my boomership. Now, Team Taylor strolls over to where the others are standing. The only ones out of the vehicle at this point are Gabe and Aaron. The brother and, other people are sitting in that. Gabe's girlfriend still sitting in her truck, or in his truck, excuse me. And, they meet, and the confrontation occurs between the 2 vehicles. Now, before we go any further, I'll let you know, I'm a firearms instructor. I teach use of force. I teach lethal force. I teach the legals on it. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the laws here and how the laws fit. Now, I teach mostly South Carolina, but I've got the Idaho laws pulled up over here, and I can reference them pretty quickly. Now, that being said, we've got these groups confronting each other. So how does this work? Well, things finally jump off. One of Taylor's group, the guy by the name of Clark, he aggressively comes up and shoves Gabe. Now, why Clark is shoving Gabe doesn't make sense to me. And the reason I say so is it's supposed to be between Taylor and Gabe. Why is this other guy, Clark, sorry, Clark, don't need to be there, but why is he coming up to shove Gabe? Well, Gabe throws a left hand, and he knocks Clark out cold. Yeah, that's right, he DFO'd. So, okay, what's that line from Friday? You got knocked out? Yeah, we know. As this is happening, and very much in watching the video, it's a very much simultaneous thing, as Gabe is throwing the punch, knocking Clark out cold, because Clark had engaged him first, Taylor shifts back, almost away from the confrontation, from the skirmish line. Now, again, remember, we're in a narrow gap between 2 trucks, so we've got all these parties in there. And Taylor, as he's shifting back, reaches back and pulls a concealed weapon from his right side. The interesting thing is, as he's pulling the concealed weapon, the camera even zooms down to where his hand is going. Did the cameraman know something was planned? Was this a pre-planned script? Think about it. It would be one thing for the cameraman to be following all the action of the punches being thrown, but no, he knew enough to come over and watch Taylor's hand go to where the gun was. Sounds to me like there was a plan afoot. Just saying. Now, camera follows the hand down to the draw. Taylor draws and fires his first shot. His first shot misses Gabe, misses Clark, who's on the ground. However, it strikes Aaron, who is behind Gabe. Now, Aaron at this point clearly has his hands at his side. He's just there hanging out, watching this go down. He's figuring, okay, they're going to fight. I'm just here to make sure no one else jumps in. A and B are going at it. I'm just going to see that no D and E and F get into it. But he ends up getting shot, catching around to the leg. Fortunately for Aaron, thank God, the round doesn't hit a femoral artery. The round is a minor wound at that point, as minor as getting shot in the leg is. But he is bleeding significantly, not femoral though, so okay. Taylor then fires a second shot. Now, the second shot ends up hitting his own cameraman in the back. It's hard to tell, but it looks like the cameraman had half moved forward. Taylor is half moving back to fire from his position. So he's firing at Gabe. However, he put one in his own cameraman's back. Yeah, I don't want to be on his team. He doesn't seem like he's got really good field of fire discipline there. So what happens? Cameraman gets one in the back, comes out the front. Again, non-fatal wound. Thank you very much. Now, cameraman goes down. By this point, Aaron has drawn his pistol, and he believes he fired it. However, we're not sure if he fired it. He thinks he did. He believes he did, and logically, he would have. There is someone shooting at him. He has been hit. He is on the ground. He is bleeding, and Taylor has just fired his second shot and hit his own cameraman. So Aaron is, by all intents and purposes, in a gunfight that he did not start. He was there for a physical fight to have Gabe's back, and Taylor has escalated this from a fisticuffs, non-deadly force adventure into a deadly force adventure by drawing a weapon, by firing at Aaron, by firing and hitting his own cameraman, trying to hit Gabe. So Aaron's on the ground. He believes he fired his pistol. We don't know how many times or that he actually did it all, but he believes he did. So we'll take it as he did. Now, at the same time, Aaron's bleeding pretty significantly. Gabe ends up getting the pistol from Aaron and is now behind the tailgate of the truck. Why? Because, again, you picture this little Hogan's Alley here. The only way to get cover is get out of that alley and get off the X to one side or the other. Yeah, because there wasn't a lot of lateral movement, and there's a lot of bullets going through this area. Taylor just hit his own guy. So Gabe has now got Aaron's pistol. Now, before we go any further, I know Aaron is 20 years old in this, and I know that Gabe is, I believe, 18, 19. We're going to say this. In Idaho, constitutional carry, 18 and up. Aaron, being 20 years old, having a firearm, 100% totally legal. Gabe, 100% totally legal, unless they've got some other predisposed reason why they could not have it. Quite frankly, Taylor at 18 having a firearm, unless he's got previous convictions or a reason he could not have it at an 18-year-old age, he's legal to be carrying. So we're not going to get into the kids or the ages or kids with guns discussion at all. These guys are legal. Idaho's a very rural area. 18 and up, it really makes sense. Hell, where I'm at in South Carolina, we're still doing 18 and up. So we'll go through that. Now, as we get a little bit further into it, another guy from Team Taylor, this guy's name is Barber. He's at the opposite end of the same truck as Taylor. Now, remember, we've got so far, multiple shots have been fired. How many ever Aaron let off? A couple out of Taylor's gun. Nobody knows who's carrying or what's carrying. Barber is at the opposite end of the truck. He comes out around the truck, and Gabe fires, shooting Barber in the head. Aaron at this point is trying to move or help be moved or be moved. I don't know exactly because you can't see it. Remember, the cameraman got shot by the second round that was fired, so that was where the video that we saw ended. Now, there is some other video, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So, Aaron is trying to get to the passenger side of Gabe's truck. He's wounded. He's bleeding. Things have gone bad. Gabe has got Aaron's gun. Gabe is like, man, my friend is down. He's bleeding. This guy brought a gun. Shots are flying. He sees Barber pop out, and guess what? He's firing at Barber. Best, maybe, maybe not. At that point, I think you've got a 19-year-old who is in a gunfight with multiple attackers or multiple rounds going off. He doesn't know if Barber is about to shoot him. He doesn't know. I mean, Taylor was the one who jumped this off. Barber's a Team Taylor guy. Are they all strapped? Who knows? Is Barber popping around to try to put a round in Gabe? How about Aaron? Gabe is trying to also cover his friend who's now wounded, bleeding, and disarmed. So Gabe fires, takes out Barber. Okay, this gets better. Gabe moves to the driver's side of his truck. He threatens to shoot the cameraman who's still lying on the ground. Yes, that's right. The cameraman who got around in the back came out his chest, and he's still on the ground. Gabe threatens to shoot him as he gets in the truck. He does not. However, once he's in the truck, he does turn around and shoot the cameraman who is down, not presenting a threat, in the leg. Not smart. Okay, bad round. Definitely bad round. I can't justify that one. I can justify Barber in that, who's shooting, where the round's coming from, I don't know. But when the cameraman's on the ground, it's don't shoot the cameraman, kind of like the old Westerns, don't shoot the piano player. Well, yeah, he shot the cameraman. Then Gabe drives away. Now, in Gabe's attempt to drive away, he accidentally, or unintentionally, I'll say, runs over Clark. Because Clark, the one who got knocked out by Gabe's punch after he shoved Gabe, he's still on the ground, and now he gets his upper body run over by Gabe's truck. Yeah, I told you this is kind of messy. So now let's sort of recap and try to put this whole thing together, because I know if you're not carrying a scorebook, it's gotten a little bit weird. So we've got Taylor. He's the one who drew the first weapon, fired the first two shots. He has fled on foot. He is uninjured. We have on his team Mr. Clark. Now, I've underlined Clark here because he's still on scene. He hasn't been able to flee. He's been knocked out. He's also been run over by Gabe's truck. We have Johnson. He was the cameraman. He got shot in the back by Taylor and then in the leg by Gabe. God, remind me not to film for these people. We have Barber. Barber was also on Team Taylor. He's the one who gets shot in the head by Gabe. Now, Skyler is another person, and he just sort of comes into the mix now. He is driving away, and in his attempt to drive away, he runs over Barber. Barber, who had been shot by Gabe. Yeah, that's where Team Taylor stands right now. We've got 3 of them down on scene. 1 or 2 of them run over by a truck. 1 of them shot in the back and the knee and the leg. 1 of them shot in the head. And 1 of them knocked out and then run over. So, yeah, pretty ugly. Then on the other side of the coin, we've got Team Gabe. We're just going to call it that, just to sort of keep this separate here. Gabe is taking off. He's driving Aaron to the hospital. His buddy is in his truck. He's bleeding all over the place. Now, besides the fact the blood's really hard to get out of your pickup truck seats, his buddy is wounded. They're trying to tourniquet his leg with a sweatshirt. They're trying to do what they can to keep Aaron alive. Now, at this point, Gabe has got to be in a manic panic episode. I asked my buddy to come help me out and have my back, and now my buddy is sitting in my truck bleeding like a stuck hog. You got to know Gabe is, probably cleaned his shorts after this mask went on, but it is what it is. So, kind of a wild one. Now, we can again get into the whole thing about maybe they shouldn't have done this, and we'll talk about that at the end because I've got a lot of thoughts on that. But if we look at this whole list of people here, Taylor started the gunfight. Clark attacked Gabe physically and wasn't even in the fight with him. Johnson, he was streaming everything. He was the cameraman. He never did anything aggressive, so he's kind of innocent. Barber, he just got shot in a skirmish. Oh, well. And Skyler, again, he's driving away because there's all this gunfire going on. How much can we fault him for accidentally hitting Barber? It happens. Gabe, yes, he was one of the original combatants, but all he did is throw one punch after he was physically attacked, and then he did take the round to shoot it at Barber. But again, understandable, I would say, under the circumstances. Then you get Aaron. Now, Aaron did loose off a couple shots. I'm not saying he didn't. He only drew and fired his firearm after he was shot and on the ground bleeding and dealing with a threat. So we can talk about all that in a minute, but under Idaho state law, it says very clearly in their self-defense law, no person in this state shall be placed in legal jeopardy of any kind whatsoever for protecting himself or his family by any reasonable means necessary, or when coming to the aid of another whom he reasonably believes is in imminent danger of being the victim of aggravated assault, robbery, rape, murder, or other heinous crime. Well, so what did Aaron do? He came to the defense of himself. He had just been shot. We've still got the shooter in this Hogan's alleyway. And yeah, he loosed a couple shots. Okay. To me, like I said, I'm kind of, on Team Aaron on this one. And that's where things get a little bit crazy. We go into the aftermath. Now, the incident again occurred February 12th of 2024, about 0100 in the morning. Now, the hospital staff, when they get to the hospital, and the investigating officers, and even the prosecutor's office, all initially treat Aaron as a crime victim. They provide him information on the crime victim's Bill of Rights, victims' rights forms, everything else. Why? Because he was there just backing up his buddy and caught a stray round from this guy named Taylor, who turned a fist fight to a Hogan's Alley gunfight. Now, Gabe and Taylor were both arrested shortly after the incident. And we'll talk about what their charges are in a minute. Aaron, however, and then Skylar were arrested in early March. Now, Aaron was arrested March 7th. So it took them from the 12th of February, sorting all this out, until March 7th to even decide that Aaron was going to be a target and not a victim, or be a criminal and not a victim. But really, what did he really do? Well, here's what they're charging everybody with. Taylor, 2 counts, felony, aggravated battery using a deadly weapon. Figure 1 for Aaron and 1 for the cameraman. Now he also concealing, destroying evidence, whatever, that happened later. We have, Gabe, 2nd-degree murder with a deadly weapon enhancement. That's for Barber. Felony, aggravated battery with a deadly weapon enhancement. That is for, the cameraman. The shot in the knee. Gabe, not smart. But now Aaron, felony aggravated assault with a deadly weapons enhancement. Who did he aggravatedly assault? The person who was shooting at him? The person who had attacked him? Again, Aaron was just there to back up Gabe. He ends up catching around early in the discussion, and he gets, charged. I don't see it. And Skylar, felony leaving the scene of an injury accident for running over Barber on his way out of the Hogan's Alley there. Now, Skylar, whatever, we can play that, just have that discussion. Again, I would say the whole leaving the scene of an accident, which Gabe and Skylar are both charged with. At least in Gabe's case, we know he was leaving the scene of an accident with a friend who, for that point, all he knew was mortally wounded or damn near mortally wounded. So I can sort of slide that charge. As far as destroying the evidence or ditching the guns or whatever else, fine, dumb one on that one. I think it's the least of our concerns. My concerns are largely with why is Aaron Murdoch being charged? And I will say that very blatantly. Now, Aaron, yes, we could talk about coulda, woulda, shoulda. Should he have been there? Should he have not? But he did not do anything until after he was shot. So if you were shot, you went to a fist fight, the guy Taylor here turns it into a gunfight. I can definitely see putting lots of charges on him. He's escalated this into a deadly force encounter, a lethal force encounter. Aaron, he basically just responded in kind to what Taylor had done. And Taylor had already shot 2 people. So, him being one of them. So, if you're shot and you're on your ass and you're bleeding, shooting back is a problem now? I think they missed this one, folks. I really do. Now, Aaron has been out on bond since the day after he was arrested. He was indicted by a grand jury on March 12th, charged with felony aggravated assault with a firearm. And they're basically stating that he made the other people, he put them in fear of their life by firing the firearm. He put them in fear of their life. He didn't even shoot any of them. Hell, Taylor's the one who shot his own cameraman. I mean, quite frankly, I don't see that his pulling the trigger can be aggravated assault when he's on the ground bleeding and he's firing back at the people who just shot him. But, okay. Aaron Murdoch is pending preliminary hearing in June for the start of the court case. Now, the grand jury system, as we know, is a one-sided process. You have often heard prosecutors say, I can indict a ham sandwich, and you really can, because the prosecutor gets to put all the evidence out in front of the jury and let everybody know everything he plans that he thinks his case can prove, and there's no one there opposing it. There's no one there from the other side. It's a totally one-sided process, and this is where it gets real interesting, there's no one there to object to any of the stuff he's presenting, so everything he takes is the gospel truth. And it's not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and it doesn't have to be unanimous. It has to be, is there probable cause? And of the 20-something people there, you just have to get one more than 50%. So if you've got 21 people in the room, you get 11 to say yes and 10 to say hell no. That's enough to get an indictment. Yes, a prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich. Hopefully, again, having watched this, and again, go back if you want to see the live footage of it and you want to check it all out. Cannon Hotep has a really, really good stream on it. He's got Aaron's dad there who's got the video, at least from the cameraman. I mentioned there was a second video. They don't have that video out yet. It was an independent from a CCTV camera. Hopefully that'll show a little bit more. Hopefully this will show that Aaron basically was a good guy with a gun defending himself from a lethal force encounter in a situation where Taylor turned a fist fight into a gunfight. Okay. Now, before we go any further, just in case people do happen to click out at this point before we get into the fun stuff, I'm going to go ahead and throw this up. If you want to reach out and contact us, you can on X or Twitter or Twix or whatever we're going to call it. On Facebook, we do have our locals account, thegunclub.locals.com. All of our videos go up on the Rumble library. Or if you want to email me directly, it's mike.southeastdefense@gmail.com. I try to follow up on all the emails I get because I do get some real interesting emails sometimes about some of these things. Again, it's one of those weird situations. Now, I know that there are going to be plenty of people, and they're going to have that discussion of, well, this shouldn't have happened. He shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have done this. He shouldn't have done that. Okay, folks, I think we need to remember something here off the top of our head. And as we do remember it, nobody went there thinking it was going to go the way it did. Nobody planned for this to happen. Now, having watched Aaron's dad talk about Aaron, I get the feeling, and again, Aaron's dad said that Aaron even knew Taylor when they were growing up, that they had formerly been involved in different sports and stuff together. So I don't think that anybody thought Taylor was going to do this. Nobody could have foreseen this is coming. Aaron also did not just carry the gun that day. Aaron, his family, routinely 2A supporters, they routinely carry when they leave the house. Kind of like, I don't carry a gun because I'm going to a fight. I carry a gun because I'm wearing pants that day. So, again, Aaron didn't necessarily bring the gun to the fight. He just happened to have it because he was wearing pants that day. It was February. It was Idaho. It was cold. I suggest pants. And a lot of 2A people, that comes with the gun. Now, we can have the discussion of, should they have done this? Is this the smart thing to do? Let's go out and meet up like men at Dark 100 and we're going to duke it out. Well, maybe not, but I want to ask what the alternatives were. And this is where, a lot of people have sort of come out and said, well, Aaron shouldn't have been there. They shouldn't have done this. Nothing good happens at Dark 100. Stupid people, stupid times, stupid things. Yeah, I get it. Okay, I get all that. We've all also been 20-year-old males, or at least half of us have. And we understand sometimes, we get a little bit more machismo than a little bit more mentality. Okay. Plus, this was an ongoing beef. This wasn't a flash in the pan. This was an ongoing beef that Taylor and Gabe had had for apparently some time. So if Taylor says, hey, man, meet me at Dark 100 out behind the old schoolyard and we'll settle this like men. If Gabe does not show up, what's next? Does this escalate? Quite possibly. We had a situation here, and it was really interesting. It was in South Carolina. It was in Columbia about 2 years ago, where two guys about the same ages had an ongoing beef. Well, unfortunately, they ran into each other in the Columbiana Mall in Richland County. Now, the guy who was the more innocent of the two, who was alone, unfortunately, in the mall when his arch nemesis, showed up, the other guys, there were a couple of them, and they were armed, and they ended up chasing him through the mall, opening fire in the mall. Now, I'm not saying right, wrong, or otherwise. What I am going to say is, if someone's got this ongoing beef, this may have seemed, at least at some point, not a good idea, but the best of a lot of really shitty ones. Is Gabe sitting there thinking, I've got to watch over my shoulder for this guy Taylor everywhere I go? Man, he knows where I work. He knows where I live, what's going to happen. So there is a possibility that Gabe didn't do this because he thought it was a great idea to go out and have a fight. Gabe might have done this, so he says, look, I want to put this beef behind me. I want to get this over and done with. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm trying to look at the big picture. I'm trying to look empathetically into Gabe's mindset, because obviously, and I'm going to say this, and again, I don't know any of these people. The only one I've actually made any contact with is Aaron's dad, David, who seems like a pretty stand-up, decent guy. Aaron seems like a pretty stand-up, decent guy who states they even knew Taylor when he was growing up. Taylor went, in my opinion, as a firearms instructor and someone who's carried for 30 years and someone who teaches lethal force, who looks at, situational awareness and counter ambush stuff. Taylor went to this with a video person recording, with a pre-plan to draw that gun. The cameraman would not have known about it. Why would the other guy, Clark, have jumped off first? He's going to start the pushing and shoving and give Taylor cover to go to his gun, and surprise, surprise, let's do pew-pew instead of punches. I got to think that Taylor planned this, and I got to think that Team Taylor knew what the playbook was. I think Aaron was totally blindsided by this. I don't think it was his plan to go there with a gun or draw a gun or turn it into gunplay. I think Aaron suddenly was like, holy crap, I've been shot. I'm down. And he is at that point trying to return fire to the person who just shot him. And again, yeah, I know. Well, if they hadn't been there, if they hadn't done this, if they hadn't done that, true. But if they hadn't done this, would Taylor have decided to jump Gabe on Main Street someday? Would Taylor have escalated it some other way? I mean, I got to say, Taylor's decision to pull the gun the way he did in the middle of this, kind of scumbaggery, if you ask me. But that's my opinion for what it's worth. On the other side of the coin, let's look at it and say Taylor wanted to get into a gunfight. I think it was pretty obvious. And, maybe Gabe decided, and again, not making excuses, but maybe Gabe decided, look, let me go. Let me deal with this guy. Let me have this fisticuffs. Let me throw some punches. We all go home and we feel better and we put it behind us. Not the smartest, but understandable. Is it reasonable? Again, reasonable in his mind that if he doesn't, Taylor's going to escalate some other time. Taylor's going to do something nasty. Quite possibly. Anyway, I hope y'all have stayed through. I hope y'all at least understand this. We follow this case. Again, I feel bad for our defender, Aaron Murdoch. He, is 20-something years old and is dealing with all this 50 Shades of BS. It sucks for him. Sucks for his family. Taylor, like I said, I think he jumped it off from the premeditation 101. And quite frankly, I think the reason that anybody was injured or killed that day is because Taylor couldn't man up and just throw his punches and deal with it that way. He had to escalate it to a gunfight, which should never have happened. But that's my thoughts anyway. For what it's worth, who the hell knows? Folks, I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you might have learned something, got a little bit of insight into this case. Hope you found it interesting. If you did, go ahead, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, share this out. What do you think about this? Of course, the easy comment is, well, if they hadn't have been there, it never would have happened. But like I said, Columbiana Mall, ongoing beef. They met at the wrong place at the wrong time, and the bad guy decided to turn Columbia Mall into a shooting gallery. You can look up that case. I didn't cover it here, but it was really interesting when you hear that one person who was considered a decent kid was running through the mall, calling his mama, saying, "Mama, they're chasing me. They've got guns." And meanwhile, the other guys are chasing him through the mall, dumping off rounds. And yeah, there was a lot of broken glass. It was really kind of impressive. Was it an active shooter at the mall? No, it was a beef that never got quenched. So maybe quenching the beef was not the worst idea. We'll take it for what it is. Beyond that, folks, be smart, be safe. I appreciate y'all watching. Please keep this family in your prayers and your thoughts. Aaron seems like a decent kid from a decent family. His dad seems like a stand-up guy. And I'm pretty much sure if I could read Aaron's mind, which I haven't talked to him and I don't know, he was going there that day just to have his buddies back because he figured maybe I can talk a little logic into Taylor. I grew up around all these people. I know these peeps. Nothing bad's going to happen. Well, we saw how that worked out. And again, as things happen with the court cases, I'll be following this. Be smart. Be safe. Bye.